Hello and welcome to NBL Overtime. We're getting to the pointy end of the season. The teams that they told us were unstoppable, well, a couple of them are just starting to falter, and the teams that we wrote off early in the year are starting to make a resurgence. Damon Lowry, Peter Hooley, welcome in the first show of 2025. How did you ring in the new year?
Sleep. It's a young man's game. I don't play around no more.
I was at the cricket in Adelaide, so I got to be over there to call a game and stay with the family, and then went out and watched a little bit of cricket and then watched some NBL after that and ring in the new year. Very rarely I get to see past 10 p.m, so it was nice.
Same with me.
10 p.m. on the Monday morning.
Yeah, I was about to say, I called it at 10 p.m. on New Year's Day. So we had a fantastic New Year's. But let's crack right into the NBL action. Of course, we've got a big game coming up after this one as well. Illawarra taking on Tassie, who their win streak came to an end. We'll see how that one rolls out. We've got an hour of power coming up. The Adelaide 36ers. Now, I spoke about teams that we wrote off for a while there. Are they making a resurgence? Now, the game against Melbourne, it was a sight to behold for 36ers fans. But are we really reading into it that they've fixed it all with the crisis meeting? Big wins, Sydney and Melbourne, but is all things cleared?
Well, I mean, all you can do is turn it around the way they have, right? Since that crisis meeting, they labelled it. They went to Sydney. They were phenomenal against the Kings, and then even better, I thought, against Melbourne. And their offense can take care of itself. Whether it's on the road, whether it's at home, they've got the talent. We'll talk about Kendrick Davis, Trez, Isaac Humphrey's a lot more involved. DJ's doing his thing, but defensively, that's what stood out for me watching that Melbourne game in particular, that there was a pride there. They really locked in. There was a communication. We called the game against Perth, I believe, where the amount of breakdowns they had, they were over-rotating or not rotating at all. There was no in-between. No one was talking to each other. They looked locked in defensively. And the way that the standings are playing out, where everyone's beating everyone, if you make the top six, you are a genuine chance to be a champion this year.
Anything can happen. Now, I went back preseason picks. I actually had Adelaide in my top six way back then. This was before Trez came to the team. Their best is really good. Their worst is really bad. So you never know what you're going to get out of Adelaide 36ers. But that defense against Melbourne United showed me, okay, I've never seen your best defense. I've seen your best offense before. Now they showed me their best defense. If they can be consistent with it. Now, some teams get up for a fight. By certain things, they get motivated by external forces. Now, what if those external forces are not there? I don't know if Adelaide, I'm not ready to trust them just yet for a championship because they always need somebody to go at. Now, if they can just do that as just par for the course, this is just what we do, and there's still enough games left in the season for them to show that, I'll reassess. But for now, I feel like they'll still be a playoff team, but a championship, not quite sure.
The Adelaide 36ers, since the pre-season, have been an absolute roller coaster. We had the Mike Wells, Scott Ninnis drama in the pre-season. We wrote them off then. New coach, always up and down. I think there is one turn left. But the only thing that has been consistent for the 36ers start to finish to right now is Kendrick Davis. And Damon, you've been the big man, little man society. What on earth you call it? Yeah. He has to be right up there in the MVP conversation.
Well, let's get it right first. It's the little big man society. And Kendrick Davis is
trademarked.
In it. Whether he knows it or not, you're in it. But look, Kendrick Davis is high-caliber offensive guy. He can do everything. His speed, one thing you cannot coach against is speed. Like with Parker Jackson Cartwright, I've seen him against Melbourne United. He got picked up full court and just went down the length of the court on his left hand and got a layup, got an and one. He can shoot the three ball. He can distribute the ball. As we look at the last 5 MVPs and the averages, 23 points for Bryce, 16 for Zave Cooks. So the numbers were down. This year's MVP will come a little higher, but I'm not a voter, and the people who do vote don't give a damn about what I think. But I will say this. If Damon Lowry was running it, you can't be MVP if you're not top 4.
What about, can I say, if
top 4?
Top 4. Now, that's definitely, I think that makes sense. I'd probably agree with that in part. Right now, Bryce Cotton is having an unbelievable, and that's why most of these, you look at the numbers that Xavier Cooks is averaging, all of these guys are averaging numbers that would have won you an MVP in any year. But right now, Bryce Cotton is playing out of his skin. Is there a world, if the Adelaide 36ers continue to win and the Wildcats necessarily drop off, that you could see Kendrick Davis taking the MVP off, who I think is the runaway favourite in Bryce Cotton at the moment?
Again, Damon Lowry doesn't get a vote. Nobody cares. But top 4. If Perth don't make the top 4 and Adelaide do, and Kendrick's got his game, and I'm going with Kendrick. That's just me. I don't want to have a Russell Westbrook situation when he got the MVP when Oklahoma City Thunder came like 6th or 7th or something.
What about this one? Adelaide 4th, Perth 5th, Bryce Cotton continues his dominance and continues to go 40 in and out. Can you make a case if Perth just drop out of the top 4?
I mean, you can, but like it's not going to take.
I think it's a top 6 thing with the way we have the playing tournament, but also this year with how close it is with those, I guess, teams from 2 to 7. That if you fall into 7th place and you miss out by a percentage and you have the same record as a team that finishes 5th and Kendrick Davis puts up exceptional numbers and Bryce peters out a little bit, which I don't think will happen, I could perhaps make a case. But I say it all the time, a team winning does matter in an MVP race. And when the teams didn't happen, it was Conklin in 2015, I believe, it was a Brownlow voting system where after every game where you play really well, you get 3 votes or you get a percentage of a certain amount of votes allowed. That's why it could happen back then. Now we see it in a lot of professional sports where your team needs to win to be able to understand that you are one of the best players in the league, but also your team has been successful. So I'm with you. I think Bryce is still leading the charge, but the race is far from over. I've got those 2 out on their own, and then there's a couple we'll talk about in a chasing pack, and it's going to be a phenomenal watch down the stretch.
It speaks to how well Kendrick has been playing, almost at times under the radar, the fact that Bryce Cotton is having this unworldly type season and Kendrick Davis is still somewhat hot on the heels. So he's killing it, the young fella. But Montrezl Harrell has been the talk of the Adelaide 36 this season, and this was his revenge game. They spoke about it in the media. They won. They absolutely demolished them. Montrezl was on fire. He won this battle. We'll make it 1-1.
He was great, and again, from the moment he walked down that ramp at the entertainment centre, he looked locked in. He had no emotion in the 2 hours leading up to the tip. And I've been there for a few Adelaide games this season, and he's normally up and about, dancing a little bit. He was so focused. He turned down a pre-game interview, said he was just locked in. I don't mind that for what was built up for this game, for everything that happened in the pain and John Cain previously. Everything that transpired, it kind of derailed Adelaide's season, so I can understand it from that point of view. But he was enormous. And the way that he was getting up and about, he was getting the crowd involved. The crowd were just... Adelaide and Shea Ili do not go together anymore. I didn't expect that, but they really went after Shea Ili, and he was feeding off that. And I like that he kept his composure. The interesting thing for me, he was enormous on the court, but he lives on the line, right? There was a moment there where he was going in to the Melbourne United huddle, and they were telling him, go away. And he asked Vaughan Maber, he said, is that against the rules? And he said, well, no. And he goes, well, I'm going to keep doing it. And Vaughan said, well, if someone did that to you, what would you say? And he goes, I wish they'd try. I was like, I wish they'd try too. But that's just how he plays, and they were feeding off that. And it's no surprise Adelaide are winning when he's playing like this.
He's such a barometer for this team. So we'll say it right now, the crisis meeting. Do you think that worked, or is this a bit of a knee-jerk? Look, they came up against Sydney, went on the road right after the meeting, and then they had the revenge game against Melbourne. Are you buying into it from what you saw from Adelaide this weekend? Was the systems that were in place better, or was there just more emotion within the group and they rode that high?
I felt like it worked. They was at rock bottom. That home game that we called, Pete, that's it. They're done. There's no way they can come back from this. It took something like that crisis, whatever you want to call it, where they all get in a room and they look at each other. And like DJ said, we're going to hold each other accountable. And this is probably brewing for a while. Now, Mike Wells says, we haven't had a whole group together. That's true as well. But the guys that he did have, they were going in different directions. Those guys they circled the wagons. Now when they come out, this team is an emotional team. They got emotional DJ, Kendrick, and Trez. Those 3 guys right there, they ready to metaphorically fight. Metaphorically. Now, Melbourne United showed up. They wanted to play a basketball game. That wasn't a basketball game. It was bigger than that. DJ called it a revenge game. Those guys are going to ride like that when the circumstances and the situation is heightened like that. That's when I think you'll see the best of Adelaide.
The accountability is the one that stands out for me. And again, you talk about the different personalities on this team, and I'm imagining me as a rookie in that lineup, and you've got a former NBA Sixth Man of the Year. When you lay out in a crisis meeting, I want to be held accountable. And every guy says that. Probably even Mike Wells too, right? The coaching staff say, we need to do this together. Then you have the more confidence as it doesn't matter who you are. You could be the 9th player on the team, but if you see something, you know it's going to benefit everyone. No one's going to take it personal. That's when teams take strides forward. That's what a players' meeting is for. That's what a crisis meeting is for, to identify things that are hard to talk about, but you walk away and say, if this helps us get better, then I won't take it personal, and let's move on and let's win ball games. And they look bloody great doing it.
Well, if Adelaide had a crisis meeting and solved all of their issues and they've culminated in how they're playing now, Melbourne United need to have about 3 of them, because 5 of their last 6 have been losses, and not just losses, bad home losses. They didn't even bother showing up to the revenge game against Adelaide, who threw them in through the mud. The supporters went at them. You would have thought this was the one. If there was ever a bounce-back game for them, this was going to be it, and they did not even turn up. They got embarrassed by Adelaide. What on earth is going on with Melbourne United? Because they look putrid and not even a reflection of their former self in the middle of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a concern. And again, I think it's both sides of the floor. We talked about the defensive side. It kind of happened, that game they lost to New Zealand was where their defense has been exposed a little bit since that, and we just don't see that under a Dean Vickerman coach team. But the offense is the side for me where I'm a little concerned of how do they get out of that. We'll talk about Delhi and Jack White's form because we expect them to be better, but when Chris Goulding's off the floor, who should be their go-to guy? It should be Ian Clark probably, right? We've got a former NBA champion, NBL champion, but he sits in the corner, doesn't get involved. We're like, where's he going here? It goes straight back to Shea Ili. If you're Adelaide 36ers right now, you're playing this possession like, okay, we're going to live with this. We're going to live with that from Shea Ili. No problem. We're going to do that because we know Ian Clark can be more damaging offensively. Another possession here. Okay, Chris Goulding's off the floor. We get in there. There's Isaac Humphries, Twin Towers, defended by Lamonte. Adelaide are going to live with that every time as well. Okay, Chris Goulding is on the floor now. Well, he's got to see some sort of offense. Again, this is what Adelaide did from the moment the game started. Chris Goulding hit a three. Lamonte was terrific, but as soon as Chris Goulding, Lamonte blew up the first action, it was almost like Chris wasn't on the floor where they're like, okay, someone's got to break something down. You can run Chris off multiple sides. He needs to be involved in the offense. And Adelaide basically said, Shea Ili, Matthew Dellavedova, if you guys want to beat us, we're going to live with that. And they couldn't do it. And that's what I'm trying to figure out is this is where it comes down to, I think, Jack White and Delhi stepping up offensively.
My biggest concern way back in the preseason was this team don't have enough offensive firepower. That's what I thought. That's what motivated me to say they wouldn't make the top six. Now, I still think they'll make the top six, but what I'm seeing right now is they can't score. Now, Marcus Lee and Rob Lowe, yes, Rob Lowe's had a couple of games out of the box. That's not an everyday occurrence. Marcus Lee, probably never going to get you a double-figure game. So, and Chris Goulding, who is their best scorer, best shooter on the country, whatever this thing is called these days.
Oh, well.
I don't think
what do we call it in Australia? The
in the last 100 years.
Yeah. Chris Goulding only plays 24 to 25 minutes a game. Preposterous. Like, what are you doing? Why are we getting cute? Play this man. You watch Bryce put up numbers, he's on the floor all the time. You watch Kendrick Davis put up numbers, he's on the floor all the time. Trey Keller's on the floor a lot. And here's Chris. Now, in previous years, you couldn't really have that argument because they always win, right? They go to the championship series playing the exact same way. This particular team cannot, in my opinion, play that same equal opportunity kind of way. They've got to feature Chris Moore, and Jack White has not stepped up nowhere near where he needs to be for them to be a contender.
It seems like the Melbourne we see now is not the Melbourne we had before the fever break. Well, a lot of teams have jumped up and started, the Perth Wildcats have started to roll as we have a look at the ladder. This is the ladder since the fever break. You look at Tassie right up the top. Now, strength of schedule, I'm still going to go to it. I think a win tonight against Illawarra would make that look very, very, very good, but remains to be seen. The Perth Wildcats, Southeast Melbourne, Illawarra City, all the way down there in Melbourne. Now, this is when it counts, and they have faltered in the back end of the year.
Well, this road trip, again, they don't play home until February. I think it's going to be really good for them they can't escape that. They're going to watch a lot of film and fix that. But you mentioned Jack White. He's the key for me. I think if they can make him more of an offensive threat where he's not just setting screens and a lob threat, he's got the talent to put the ball on the floor. He can expose certain matchups, really try and go to him early and often. I think that's going to help unlock things as well. But I'm with you as well on the Chris Goulding factor. He needs to be involved nearly every single time down the floor. And once they start to tick things over, I think they'll be perfectly fine. It's what Dean Vickerman does. But as we said, they don't play at home until February.
They don't play at home until February. And the other thing that's always it hasn't irked me, but I've always found it interesting with Melbourne, they're very reliant on local talent. You look at these other teams, if there is a good import in the league, like a Jalen Adams available, everyone's fighting for him. You don't really see that with Melbourne. We look at their recent imports. No names there really jump off the page as, hey, your Scotty Hobson, he was a solid guy. Jordan Caroline, he left. Marcus Lee is a very, very good role player. Xavier Rattan-Mays, of course, over at Real Madrid is doing very well. But again, Ian Clark is a fantastic six man in this league, and I think he'd start on every single other team. But there's no names in there like your sort of perennial MVP contenders. When Melbourne, don't tell me you don't have the money, because you've got the money. And it just strikes me as, is that what they're lacking? You've said that they don't have that alpha scorer. Now, Chris is an unbelievable player, but he's not going to get you a bucket off the dribble like a Jalen Adams will.
They always go with like you say, the locals, right? And those locals have been like rock solid, like, Shea Ili, Dellavedova, these kind of guys. But they had a JLA. that you could just, when everything breaks down, just throw the ball inside the JLA. They had a Jock Landale. They don't have that scoring interior now. And they won't ever go with those three kind of big imports because they trust an NBA vet like Delly. They trust a guy like Shaley. Fair enough. And also a next star. You had an Ario Hook-Porty that you could throw the ball into and it can make things happen on the defensive end. Now it's like you don't have enough firepower. Now we're going to ask Jack White. Jack is an occasional scorer. He's not a guy that can go out there, this with all due respect. He can't just go out there and just average 17 points a game. Just because. You just can't give Jack the ball and go to work. He's got to feature off of offense, some back picks, some lobs, running the floor, the occasional spot up three. They need a proper go-to scorer. And I feel like without Chris doing it, who's the best scorer on the team? Probably Shea.
And I think Jack White can be a 17-point-a-night scorer, but you're right, it's going to come through the offense.
I think he can.
I think
Jack White
has to come through the offense. You're not going to do what like a Chris Golding and Bryce Cotton and say, hey, just go and get me a bucket. But I think he absolutely can be. I think he needs to be now for them to get out of this. But it's funny, you talk about their local talent. We've seen it because they won a title with Jock Landale and JLA there in NBL 21. But before that, they had Mello Trimble and Sean Long, and it didn't work out the way they wanted. So they've understood that local talent that they've had has helped them get to competing for championships since that. Right now, they do need to rely on that again with Jack White, with Matthew Dellavedova. They'll probably tinker some things, but Dean Vickerman's the best there is. You know he's going to be able to figure it out.
And just to round out this United chat, you know, Dean Vickerman is one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the NBL. They're going to find a way to work this out. It is not the sky is falling in, but right now there is a lot of stuff that they need to work out. But you said it right, going on the road, as much as you look at it and you go, geez, this is probably not the time you want to go. It is.
It is.
When everything's falling apart and you've got a group that is very, very reliant on culture, this is probably the time to go. But tell you who would really help them right now? If they could somehow make a mid-end of season trade, Bryce Cotton. Because he has gone nuclear. And it should be illegal, what he's doing. It was almost, you know, what would you call it when you go over to another country and commit a crime? Foreign espionage, I think it was, going over to New Zealand and doing this again. He had 59 points once, and then he goes and does this. He is unstoppable right now, and it's almost just a matter of conversation to start talking about other people in the MVP, isn't it?
Listen here. Called this game, and Bryce Cotton, as we all know, let's not even talk about the fact that he's just a prolific shot maker. Let's talk about the fact that his coach leaves him on the floor the entire game.
Thank you, John.
Even when Bryce is tired for him, John really goes, I think Bryce can still play it when he's tired. Every other coach in the league takes their guy out to try to get him a quick spell. Whereas we look at Bryce's last 7 games, I can't add all that stuff up. It's a hell of a lot of points there.
13 points against Illawarra. Bum.
He's going to wear you down because he's offensively fitter than whatever you are, and he's going to stay on the floor long enough to expose your lack of defensive fitness.
I think we're taking for granted still, though, because you have a look at this, the 40-point game since 2009. He's got 5 of them this year. I remember that 2022-23 season, and it was really heightened with that game, the double overtime down in Gippsland.
There's 2 players who got in one game, Derek Walsh Jr.
They both had 45 and 46 in double-doubles. We were all stunned. Well, you don't score 40 points in a 40-minute NBL game. It just doesn't happen. It's so rare. Bryce Cotton's doing it basically every other week. That is just a level of his greatness right now, the way he can go about scoring. And it was 8 years today that he played his first game in the NBA.
Yeah.
So the anniversary of it all, it's funny because he had an interview with Abby Gelmy at the time, and she said, do you think you could be the difference? And he said, well, we'll see. Turns out
2 people whose careers have just gone on the absolute upward trajectory.
That's a great interview.
Well.
One more thing, too. When he played with Vic Law was the only other import I feel he's played with that can go 30 for 30 with Bryce. Now Bryce is playing with imports. He's only playing with one import at the moment, Dylan Windler, who can score, but very passive, very non-aggressive. So Bryce is getting the shots that 3 imports would normally get.
And I've also been saying, I always, as a joke, I tweet out it's always sunny on John Riley Island because I'm a big defender of the Perth coaching staff, and I think that they get a rough trot just because their fans are so rabid, for lack of a better term, and they demand success. And you know what? That's what would make the Perth Wildcats great, is that sort of demand for success all the time. But you got to remember that he is coached to be in those situations as well. It is not easy to coach Bryce Cotton. And some of the sets they run, the way they clear the floor to get Bryce in these positions to score, it's not all, every time I tweet it out, people say, oh, it's just because Bryce had a good game. They do run offense to get Bryce the ball in great situations with mismatches. There's a lot of times where he ended up with Max Darling on him off 2-3 screens. So the Wildcats coaching staff, don't be so quick to judge saying this is all Bryce Cotton. He is up here but the Wildcat staff also put him in the right positions.
The Wildcats are my championship preseason pick, and I lost some confidence there for a while. But now the way the rest of the league's unfolding, with all these other teams faltering, and we're seeing some cracks, with Christian Doolittle set to come back at some point, I'm starting to get my confidence back that they can do it.
Tell you what, we said it pre-season, never write off the Wildcats, but I'll tell you who would have written off the Wildcats, Corey Homicide Williams. So let's jump into it. Ain't no cupcake league. Well, I made the Trans-Tasman journey for about 4 minutes of airtime on Sunday, I believe it was, which I absolutely love. My first time in New Zealand, first time in a New Zealand Breakers game ever. They let me in, passport chipped, bang. The game day experience at New Zealand, in my opinion, was second to none. They had 15 mascots, but Simon Edwards, one of the best MCs you will ever see. Now, this man works about 7 different jobs for the Breakers and also does the game day MC. Now, the music during this was Gangnam Style. I'm telling you, man, at every single timeout, I have never seen a crowd during timeouts in a game so engaged with whatever Simon was doing. He was yelling, screaming, doing burger throws, everything. The crowd was locked in as if it was a 1-point game.
I'm impressed the fact that you're right. You worked 4 minutes in that game and you were still locked in to see all that. That was impressive. Now, our very good friend, our colleague, he's one of the best we have in Leonard Copeland. He's just so comfortable in the media now. He's doing such a good job. Wasn't so comfortable way back when.
Hello, big guy.
How are you? Good to see you.
Have a look at, come in a bit. Have a look at the size of you. Hey, and you haven't got an ounce of fat on you.
None at all.
Yeah.
None at all.
You feeling fit?
Feeling good, ready to go.
Yeah, when the cameraman goes like that, that means come in a bit closer.
Okay,
That's the way.
Adelaide's beautiful. Everybody has had a kind word. A bit of pressure. You better win a championship. I hear that everywhere. And I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Good to meet you, Leonard.
You too. Thanks a lot. I'll see you again.
Yeah, absolutely, and have a great
I
day.
would have been creeped out as well. What was that? Oh, yeah,
He did a good job.
You haven't got an ounce of fat on you. Jesus
Answered
Christ.
it well and then just slowly moved over. Oh, we love it.
That was scary.
Now, New Zealand Breakers obviously need some help. If you could pick one superhero to help out the New Zealand Breakers right now, who would you pick?
Oh, God himself.
Superman.
Alex McNaught decided
Oh,
to go
McNaught's
with...
at it again.
Let's have a look.
Oh, come
He
on.
went with the Cape Crusader. In that utility belt, I don't know if there's enough in there.
That's not a muscle suit.
Now, Alex has given us the
Harry
Flash, Harry Potter. He's into his superheroes and his costumes, but they're going to need the entire Justice League to get them out of the mess they're in right now.
We set a challenge to him. I want him to dress up as you at some point.
What would you wear?
Well, that's up to him to
Is
figure
it
out.
what stage of the day, night is he dressing up
At
as
any
me?
point, I want him to see him dress up.
Okay, we'll see. Well, we'll leave that to your imagination to what outfit that would be. But the second half coming up next. Welcome back to NBL Overtime. Now, the South East Melbourne Phoenix, they're rolling at the moment, and they handed the Tassie Jack Jumpers their first real test of this winning streak. And what happened? Well, they faltered. South East Melbourne were dominant in this one. Josh King, the experiment looks to have worked. And, of course, as he said, you've got to give Sammy McKinnon a bit of credit on this streak as well. He kicked it off after, of course, Mike Kelly departed. But South East Melbourne right now, Matt Hurt's rolling. Nathan Sobey's found his feet. Everything that they weren't at the beginning of the season, they now are.
They are, and I'm really high on what they can achieve now. When I think about what could be in a semi-final series, a 3-game series or a 5-game series, I actually can see them winning against any team in the league, where I look at some other teams around them and I match them up in certain matchups and I said, oh, maybe they can't win that one. I think the Phoenix are incredibly dangerous. They're doing it on the back of the defense, which we'll talk about, but Matt Hurt, once again, he's been phenomenal. We can't sing his praises more because whichever way you want to get it, he'll give it to you. 20 points again, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He scores in a variety of ways. He can fade away from the post. He can get in deep. He can step out and shoot the three. He's got a nice step back. Moves exceptionally well for a big man. And we talked about his push for an All-NBL first team. Continues to make his case. And it doesn't matter, I don't think, for All-NBL teams in terms of team's performance. Because if you average 25-7 and you're the bottom team, you'll still get an All-NBL nod. But it does help his case that they are winning right now.
You've got to average more. I would say that. If you're on a bottom team, you can still make it. But if you're averaging 20 on a team that potentially makes the top 4, you got to make that 23, 24 on one of these lower teams. But South East Melbourne, Damon, rolling.
You underestimate my disdain for losing. And you don't appreciate enough my joy and my importance I put in winning. So if you're bottom team and you're averaging 27, I don't care at all. Now, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, yes, they are balling. And the biggest thing I feel like they playing with great efficiency, but they including Jordy Hunter. Sometimes when they are at their worst, and every team has a worst version of themselves and a best version of themselves. When the Phoenix are at their worst, they forget about Jordy Hunter. They go individual too much. The ball sticks too much. But when they're at their best, Jordy's getting 17 and 8. He's getting the roll dunks. He's, spacing. He'll even hit the three-pointer. And Josh King, I keep saying Josh King. I keep wanting to say Josh Knight, sorry. But Josh King said something I really thought was interesting. He said, now we have to find out how we play with success. A lot of teams struggle with that. Yeah, you can play with a chip on your shoulder for only so long. But now that everybody's talking to Phoenix up and they're playing well, let's see how they respond.
Derek Walton Jr.
Yep.
He's a guy that was coming under some real fire along with Nathan Sobey. Both of these guys have really started to find their feet late. But you'd have to say, if Derek Walton never got going, this team was never going to get going towards the end of the year as a whole.
All successful teams have some sort of hierarchy with role hierarchy. It doesn't necessarily have to be scoring the ball, but usually that is it. At the start, when they were trying to figure that out, there was so much confusion. Derek Walton Jr. is your guy. This man has won a championship before. He's won a Grand Final Series MVP. He is your guy. He is your leader on the offensive end. It helps that he's a point guard doing it, but you talk about Jordy Hunter, it's up to him to get Jordy Hunter involved in certain moments. It's up for him to take over games in the fourth quarter, him to get Sobey going. Wieskamp's been great off the bench, but Derek Walton Jr. is the key to their success. And again, it's no surprise that they've turned this thing around when he's come back in, he's taken over the reins, and this is the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix we all thought should have been there from the preseason.
What is it about Josh King? Because he's come in and he's a fairly quietly spoken guy, but he's got a huge amount of energy on the sidelines. And we look back to the way that Mike Kelly coached. Mike Kelly, former coach of the year. This isn't a knock on Mike Kelly at all. It's just different coaching styles. Do you think just that new exuberant energy is the thing that's just got these guys going? It's just a new face?
It depends on who your personnel is. Now, like a guy like Mike Kelly with his low demeanor, like with his calmness, works with certain individuals. This particular team, Josh is perfect for him. He's high energy all the time, enthusiasm. He will bring out whatever little bit that's in you, he'll bring it out. And he shows it himself. He's sweating just as if he played 20, 25 minutes a game. He's leading from the front when it comes to energy. His team has no choice but to follow.
And again, this comes back to what we talked about with Adelaide. It's accountability. And Josh King has showed that if you're one of our superstars, we can have more zeros than the 12th player on the roster, but if you're not getting it done in practice or in games, we're just not going to play it. So that holds everybody else accountable now. They're playing for it. When he gets to recruit his own team as well, he's going to recruit a certain type of player as well, which is exciting for the future. But this is why Southeast Melbourne look legit.
Outscored by 22 points in the fourth quarter against the Kings. Were cracks appearing there or just a bit of an outlier?
I think it's good for them to experience that so they can address it next time they're in that situation. But that says probably more to me about the Sydney Kings, who are the best fourth quarter team in the league. They're as clutch as they come, and they've got some MVPs to lead the way.
But that game against Sydney that they blew, that's when they was at their worst version of themselves. It was ISO basketball, bad shots, Derek Walton Jr. The same thing that makes you great can be the same thing that makes you bad in certain situations. Derek took a couple of shots that he would love to have had back.
There was that one.
That one out of the corner.
It was horrific.
In transit. I mean, but look, again, that's not a common thing, though. Like, everybody's going to show you their worst every now and then. But it was for an extended period of time, which coincided with Jalen Adams and his brilliant play. They turned around and rectified that straight away when they went to Tassie, and all that was gone. So I didn't have a problem with that as long as they address it, and I'm sure Josh King did.
You guys are the experts. You guys analyse this stuff better than anyone else in the NBL. Can someone work out what the hell is going on with the Sydney Kings? Because I cannot get a read on them. The only thing we know is that when the fourth quarter comes around, they turn into what we all expected in the preseason. But for the other three, you really don't know what you're going to get. Right now, they're the fourth quarter Kings. They are dominant when the game is on the line, which just shows you the ability of this team. They could easily be the best team in the league.
And I think it says more to what they can achieve now. The fact that they've had all these ups and downs, the press conferences, the form, the way we've seen some really poor showings and then some great performances, they have a chance to be second when Melbourne United come to town on Thursday. So they are right there poised to strike, and I tweeted about it after that Southeast Melbourne game. Give me Jalen Adams in the fourth quarter over probably everybody else. Yeah. And I'm saying that maybe even over Bryce Cotton, which is crazy to think. But Jalen Adams, when he wants to, in the clutch, This man, he just lives and breathes these big moments. He stays composed. He gets to his spot at will. I know I'm probably going to regret that, but I say it with the greatest of Bryce Cotton, but it's those two for me. Those two are runaway fourth quarter experts, and I still think he needs to do it throughout the whole course of a game. He's still going to be their main man as well, alongside Xavier Cooks, who I think season's been very underrated. But look at his last 6 games. It's been unbelievable.
One thing about the Sydney Kings in the fourth quarter, are they consistent? They play a certain style, 4 out, middle ball screen. That's it. And the ball is in the best point guard's hand. Jalen Adams makes the best decisions out of all the guards. Great season this year for all the guards. But when Jalen's got the ball in the pick and roll, you know it's something good is about to happen. You got Kawhi spacing out. You got Tui spacing out. You got Xavier Cooks setting the pick, which distorts all the matchups because there's not a big man in the league that can guard Xavier Cooks. So that's the formula. Good luck to you in your one-on-one defense. It will be exposed against the Kings.
The enigma that is Cam Oliver. Back-to-back games in the starting lineup. Is he, Gorgon said before, if he doesn't get himself going, we're not going to get where we need to be. The way that they've been playing, it sort of leads me to believe that they can do this thing with even Cam Oliver. You know, maybe not playing at his best, but still playing well below that. I still think that they're going to be a championship threat, even if he doesn't get to his best.
I totally disagree.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I really do. I think Cam Oliver has to be somewhere near his best for them to contend for a title, because I look at some other teams around that, and in particular down the road, the Illawarra Hawks. If they had a 3-game series or a championship series against the Hawks, they're going to need Cam Oliver to be enormous, because the bigs for the Illawarra Hawks will give them the business if he's not. So I think he is an X factor.
On the defensive end.
On both ends.
He can play, yeah. If he shows up on the defensive end, I just don't think you need the point production and the rebound production that we're used to getting out of Cam Oliver. You've got a guy like Quatnoy bringing points. You've got Xavier Cooks. He can carry the load in the points department. I just think all you need him right now is on the defensive end, which I think at times he's been better there, but it's just we obviously naturally focus on the offensive numbers.
Nah, Cam's averaging 13.6 rebounds. Now, Sam Frawley might be averaging about 14 and 6 or 7. We're saying that Sam's having a great season. Cam's doing that in 20 minutes. This dude is a scorer. Like, he can do whatever you want him to do. Now, for whatever reason, him and Brian does not envision him playing 30 minutes a game. I don't know why, because he's only starting these 2 games because Kelly LePepe is hurt. As soon as Kelly comes back, Cam's ass is going back to the bench. And that's a damn shame, because Kelly, to his credit, Kelly's playing good for a bag-up kind of a big, but you're not winning a championship with Cam Oliver playing 15 to 20 minutes a game, if that. So I feel like he's perfect for that spread offense, that 4-out, almost a shell drill. He can set the ball screen. Him and Zave can play together. And like when the Brisbane Bullets tried to come with big Tyrell Harrison, he can't bully Cam Oliver. They got to somehow get him, and it's not on Cam to do it, because I feel like Cam is already doing it. It's up to the coaching staff to put him out there on the floor.
Well, Jalen Adams is absolutely flying at the moment because he has someone to compete with in the backcourt. Lamonte Turner signed by the Sydney Kings. Now, only about 11 games in 2 years for Lamonte. So it's very, very tough to get a read. Of course, he played over there at FMP I believe is in Belgrade, which is a very, very good team. But again, he's been to a lot of places where he's played 3 games and he moves on. To me, you know, I don't know the character of the guy. I don't know who he is. Was it injury, whatever it was. But as soon as you're playing those short stints, it's a bit of a red flag.
Hey, look, nobody knows what happened over there. Nobody knows. I wish Lamonte all the best. Welcome to Australia.
Yeah, welcome to the NBL. We're going to find out. It's not going to be too long until we see him in action. And can he take the Kings to the next level? Right now, it's time for us to take a break.
Vasiljevic shakes, grabs, fires, knocks down Adelaide's 4th triple of the quarter. Noi. It's Quatnoy time. It's picked off by Edwards. There we go. There might be a tail to right here.
The Mitsubishi Motors 3s. How's our leaderboard looking? Chris Golding, 65. Tyler Harvey hot on the tail, and Bryce Cotton, 52. I would have thought, maybe it's just me, Bryce Cotton, I would have thought he'd be a little bit further up there. He's been attacking the rack and he's been shooting mid-ranges this season and absolutely dominating as he does it. And Casey Prather, a new name on the board. I reckon pre-season, not many people would have had him right there as well. But I tell you what, not many people would have had the Cairns Taipans beating the ladder leader Illawarra Hawks. We all knew that this streak was going to be snapped at some point. Usually it gets done against one of the cellar dwellers, one of those easy games. But no, they caught him slipping, and probably the wildest final 12 seconds of basketball I have seen in a long, long time.
It was fascinating calling this game. You just felt like it was always another chapter to be written. There was mistakes on both sides. Tanner Groves fouling out, and then some questionable fouls from Cairns, and then this right here, the turnover. And Taran Armstrong, again, I understand why everybody got stuck into Hyungjong Lee, but I can't give him much blame because he's got 2 seconds to react in a position that they should never have been in. He should never have had to even worry about contesting that because they could get a shot. My biggest pet peeve with this game is we see it a lot with coaches when you have certain offense and defensive substitutions. Tyler Harvey was waiting to check in. And I understand why coaches do it. I understand why, because you need the defense, the offense. I get it. But how many times does that happen when the second free throw is missed and your best free throw shooter can't get checked in? Because if he's in the game there and Hickey's off, whoever gets that rebound is then a capable free throw shooter to get fouled and not throw it away. It happens more often than you realise, and I think just sitting there watching Tyler Harvey, he would be frustrated because he should have been on the court, and if he gets fouled, he doesn't miss free throws. He hasn't missed a free throw in 5 years.
Thank you for saying that, because that's 100% correct. Tyler Harvey got to be on. That's your most clutch guy. Your most clutch guy got to be out there. I know Justin Tatum likes to get certain situations. You know what, man?
Nearly every coach has done it.
Yeah, we're getting too cute. We're messing around. But has anybody talked about the fact that after that turnover, after Davo threw the 50-foot hook pass, how come nobody fouled Rob Edwards? Wani Swaka should have just fouled Rob Edwards. He's dribbling towards the three-point line. The only thing that can put this game in overtime is a three-pointer, and you let him pull up in your face. Mistake, big mistake. You got to foul in that situation.
If they were to remove substitutions from the game altogether, would you be happy?
What?
Just remove subs altogether.
5 players.
You send 5 players out there, you say, you guys run out the game. So we're taking teams down to 5. I know you're a 3-on-3 guy. We're trying to get our 10-man game to 5.
No.
And then you'll get it to 3.
No. That's the point I'm making.
No,
but, that game aside, just like I said, every team's got a flaw. The Wollongong Hawks, Illawarra Hawks, they don't need a crisis meeting. They've already kind of addressed it. But their flaw is their casualness.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can just relax. It starts with Trey Kell, a very calm, smooth kind of a dude. I saw when that game started, I thought, they're going to be in trouble. I see, just the way it started. There was no energy there. Now, your bench always comes with energy. Lachlan Albrecht, Davo, Hickey.
The best bench in the league.
Yeah, but the starters got to start the game off that way, and they didn't. They got a little bit too complacent, and they got bit.
It's weird to sit here after 2 losses for the Hawks and feel more confident about what they can achieve, but I do. Because of that exact reason. And I think Justin Tatum is the perfect coach to hold them accountable to that. You talk about being casual at times where this happens now. You've still got 5 weeks left of the season to address it, and you will be a better team in the crunch time for it because you've experienced it in back-to-back moments. But yeah, as I said, the subs, we've seen it a lot. The NBA sub after the first free throw, so you can do it. Every coach has tried to do it. Every coach will still try because normally teams knock down the free throws, but still, what an incredible finish it was, though. It's
unbelievable.
Credit to the Taipans, that 100%.
Awesome.
Hey, never say die. And credit to Taran Armstrong as well, who's been in and out of the team with injury and whatnot. But every time he gets out there, and some people said online, when are we going to see the best of this kid? Are people just hyping him up? And this kid is legit. He's had his season interrupted by injury for the last 2 years, but when we see his best, he's poised, get in the paint, make great decisions. Make no mistake about it. If Taran Armstrong's not playing this game, they do not win. And it's not just the 28 points, it's the game control that he has.
I've spoke to the NBA people about Taran Armstrong as well, and Adam Ford said it where they set him a challenge last year. We need to see you work on your body a little bit. He went and did that in the off-season. He came back and put on a bit more size. Then they said, we really need you to work on your shot. He's shooting over 42% from 3. And it's not just wide open catch and shoots. He's playing with it. He's stepping back. He's hitting tough shots. So he's doing everything that overseas are asking for, which means that he will get an opportunity. It'll be an NBA workout. It'll be summer league. It'll be whatever. It would not surprise me if this time next year we're looking and he's the Jack McVeigh with a 2-way opportunity. He's just that type of player. And if it's not next year, it'll come eventually. But he's taken the massive leap forward. He's the most improved player.
Well, if we've hyped up Taran Armstrong and we've said this guy's great, he didn't do that with Taco Fall. We were actually quite critical when he signed in the league, and maybe I'll shoulder the blame for a majority of that. But the last 2 games, hey, sometimes it ain't pretty. but he's getting the job done, and they're finding out that sometimes it's as simple as throwing the ball up to the big man and getting it. In the last 2 games, he hasn't brought it down as much. He's just taken the ball, bang. And as he said in the pre-game chat that we had with him, he said this is the first time in a while he's just been uninjured. He's been able to play a few games straight, and he's getting his rhythm back.
He's Wilt Chamberlain. That's who he is. You throw him the ball, he don't have to jump. I saw the best out-of-bounds play of all time. He just stood underneath the basket, just throwing the ball. You look at his first 5 games, averaged 9. Last 4, 19 points a game, I'll round up. 19 and 10 for the big fella. As his fitness gets better, as he starts to kind of acclimatize a little bit more and extend those minutes out, you cannot really guard this dude. But here's one thing, too, I want to mention. Petri Kapanen. He's had to coach 3 breaker teams. The Freddie Gillespie team, he's had to coach the Taco Fall team, and he's had to coach the team without PJC. The dude deserves at least one Coach of the Year vote.
Oh, he's awesome. I love what he's going to achieve as a head coach. But you know why it doesn't surprise me, the last couple of games in particular that Taco's been this good, is Mitch McCarron running the point guard. He's been great defensively as well, but Mitch McCarron's the best passer, decision maker on that team as a veteran, and he's helping. Matt Mooney's rolling up the assists as well, but he's putting people in position just to throw it up. That's why you got to throw it up to the big guy. Is
there a world, and again, when I say this is not a knock on Parker Jackson-Cartwright as a player at all. He's in a very unique situation in a league which usually doesn't suit guys that are 7'6". Are the Breakers better when Taco Fall's in the team with Mitch McCarron at the guard spot and not PJC, who's more of a get in the lane, swipe and go crazy? I think they are, and that is not a knock on Parker Jackson-Cartwright. He's one of the best players in the league.
It's a 40-minute game. There's going to be times that you got to be able to adjust your style. Every team play. We're talking about Melbourne United, how they play without Chris Golden on the floor. They're a completely different team. New Zealand Breakers with Taco, here's your style. Deal with it. Without Taco, without Taco and no PJC, they struggle. Matt Mooney got to play the point. Matt Mooney had a great game after he fouled out. But without Parker, that team without Taco, them two both can't be off the floor at the same time is what I'm trying to say.
I'll answer it in one word. No. I think they need PJC.
So you reckon that the Breakers that went on that 8-game losing streak with PJC and Taco are better than the Breakers that they're playing now?
I think they're figuring out now, Taco, when you bring in a new guy at any point in the season, there is some learning curves. When you do it with the presence of who Taco Fall is, and as Mitch McCarron said in the press conference, he has never played with a guy like Taco Fall before. Doing that mid-season as well, adding that element, it's going to take some time. I think they've finally figured that out now. When PJC comes back, they'll win some more games.
I'll put it this way. Breakers with Freddie Gillespie and PJC, that's the best they can be. So Breakers without Taco and with PJC and Gillespie, that's the best Breakers we'll see. But I think the Breakers now, with Taco Fall, where he has to be a focal point, and Mitch McCarron, I think that's the best to pair with Taco Fall and get the best out of it.
I'm not going to lie, that was real who's on first, what's on second. I have no idea. I'm so confused.
Hey, the Breakers did start. Remember, they started the season 7-2, so they are not out of the hunt. 7-3. They are not out of the hunt when it comes to a playoff play-in berth. Are they still somewhat a chance? We forget they did go on that losing streak, but they got the runs on early. It's not out of reach.
I think it's out of reach just because of the teams around them. When the teams around them are going, like Adelaide are just above them, and I think Adelaide are going to be in a better position by the end of January.
Well, I'm going to say their court MC, team manager, announcer is working way too hard for this team not to make the play-in. They're doing a fantastic job, the Breakers. Hopefully they can turn it around. Plenty more coming up next. Well, the NBL has become absolutely impossible to predict whether a team's going to win, whether they're going to lose, whether they're going on a losing streak of 8 games, a win streak of 12 games. You just don't know. And the Brisbane Bullets have been emblematic of that this season. Currently on a 3-game losing streak, just as we started to sing their praises and call them contenders, play-in, whatever it want to be, we said they're playing some great basketball. They got first-team all-NBL guys on there, and then all of a sudden they decide, no, we don't want to do that anymore. We want to get back to the old Brisbane Bullets, what we were doing.
It's going to be tough. I mean, they've got a big schedule coming up. We saw they had single-header games up until round 9. They've got a lot of double-headers until round 19. They're playing through it. There's some injury concerns still to come out of last round that they'll figure it out. But what's going to hurt them, and then we talked about Adelaide and didn't mention it, but their percentage is pretty low compared to some of those other teams who are competing for a top 6. And we say it every year, and it always ends up happening. A team's going to miss out on the play-in tournament because their percentage isn't right there. And if you don't believe us, it was 2 years ago Melbourne United missed out by 1 bucket over the course of an entire season, 28 games. It came down to 1 layup or 2 free throws that made they were not playing postseason.
Could have been a 3 as well.
No, that's 3 points. I said just two.
But they would have still got them in.
Just three. Well, unless you were shooting it.
Brisbane Bullets, this isn't their year. It's not their year. Not for playoffs. Yes, that's what they said. The start of the season, of course, you have to say that. But I think they're building for the future. I like their 3 imports they got. I like that combination. I like Tyrell Harrison. I wish they used them way more. I like Josh Bannon in there. Nobody's going anywhere out of that group. I don't think Josh Bannon's going to go overseas anywhere and collect any dough. I think everybody will stay right here. So I like what they're building. Now, they're going to make some noise still. They're not through winning games. I don't think they'll make the 6, but they're not through winning.
I think you make a really good point there, that this is 3 imports that aren't, blow the bank wide open. This is imports you can keep. Hopefully Bateman comes back. Josh Adams, of course, just signed. Hit his first shot straight off the plane. And may I say, very, very smart move from the Brisbane social media team, announcing the starting lineups at 12 o'clock midday.
That was earlier than that. That was New Zealand. That was way earlier than that.
So they knew that Josh Adams was going to be there, so the fans would pile in knowing that he was definitely going to play.
Do you like that? I'm sure you do.
Smart.
Straight off the
Genius.
plane, straight into the starting lineup. Normally, when I saw he was going to suit up, I mean, you have to qualify, I didn't think he was going to play at all. I thought he was just going to get a game towards qualification, but straight into the starting lineup?
The strongest steel comes from the hottest fire. Just throw him in there. You leave the airport, you get to the stadium, you put your shoes on, and you hoop. Because the longer you let it go, that's when the jet lag will kick in. It's going to hit him at some point. But you got to get him while he's fresh. I loved it.
You can lead a fish to water, but you cannot make it drink. Is that what it is? It's something like that. Something like that. But I'll tell you what, hey, summer shootout. The fish drink, don't they? They drink in water? Or what do they drink?
Well, it's got nothing to do with what he said.
Well, I don't know. They're swimming in it. They may as well drink while they're there. Saves going onto land and getting one from a bar. The NBL Summer Shootout, look at that. The first 2 games, my God, eyesores. Come on, guys, fire up. This is the Summer Shootout. We need some high scores. Now, I know that coaches aren't going to change their strategies, but still, we went from the highest scoring games we've ever seen. The Summer Shootout begins, and teams just decide now we want to play defense?
Well, again, we've spoke about it a lot. Coach mentioned it during the call of the Melbourne game of Adelaide, where teams now understand that you did pick them. Regardless of whether they're trying to win the cash or do whatever, I can tell you, I think teams care more about trying to not let you run up the score on them because you've identified them than they would of just getting some extra money in their pocket, which is enticing for me to be able to sit back and watch who's really trying to lock up. Because that's the best defence we've seen Adelaide play. And they held Melbourne to 80 plus, where Melbourne had 107 average in the 2 games prior to that. So you don't think they thought a little bit more? I know there was the big incident before that as well, but it all matters. And I'm very intrigued for these Friday and Sunday ones in Tassie at MyState Bank Arena where they just lost.
I love the fact that teams are taking it personal. Take it with the disrespect that it was given out, that it was intended for. Good. But a lot of those teams, they can't put up big numbers. Not on, it's just not in their DNA like that. The Illawarra Hawks, on the other hand, oh, you can see 115 coming.
I knew it was coming back.
You know it's coming.
Well, I picked the Sydney Kings, and I don't think 91.
You'll find me in Cairns on January 23rd when the Hawks come to town.
Southeast Melbourne Phoenix will go to in Perth on January 31st. They'll have a target score as well.
It's 2 ways to put money in your pocket. You can do the Summer Shootout and you can pick the right team, or you can follow the trend is your friend, all thanks to Sportsbet. And where are we going this week? Well, we're going Melbourne United. Now, we spoke on Melbourne United a little bit earlier and we spoke on the shooting woes that they've gone through. They are not only getting bad shots, but they're not making those bad shots when they take them, which usually is one and the same. And right now, that is a win for us as punters. You look at the field goal percentage right now, the Illawarra Hawks, Damon, you've inspired them with your support and they're right up the top. They're barely missing it all. Southeast Melbourne are flying. The Taipans are right at the bottom there, pretty emblematic of what they've been doing this season. But Melbourne United, they have the cavalry. They just haven't been able to get it done. Now, is that going to switch around at some point, Pete? I probably think it will. But when I look at what they've got out there right now, something drastic has to change to be able to pull that field goal percentage up.
I think it will a little bit, right? Because they're in a hole where they've got to be able to figure it out. I don't think they'll shoot this poorly again. But the biggest test, and you talk about your trend here, is that they're playing the Sydney Kings, which is the best offensive team.
We look at here the total match points form line. Of course, Tassie, that one went over. The next 2, bang, bang. That one in Adelaide. That was all thanks to the Adelaide 36ers piling on the points as well. I think this is just somewhere that we can find potentially a little edge, but just my luck. Melbourne United are going to come out and win the Summer Shootout somehow. Well, they can't do that now because they've done that too early, but something will happen.
Official drink, right? As you said so eloquently.
If you're watching as well, please tweet in whether fish drink or not, because we've been discussing that during the... What do they drink?
Well, yeah, it wasn't.
We're going to discuss this during the ad break. We'll see you in a moment. They fish.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Not far away now, Illawarra hosting the Jack Jumpers. Both teams coming off a loss, which we probably couldn't say for quite a while. The Jack Jumpers, well, their win streak came to an end, and Illawarra, Damon, I hate to say it, 0 for 2 on their last two.
As the self-imposed, unofficial spokesperson of the Illawarra Hawks, we've had a chat. We have had a chat, and things have been addressed. I'm expecting the Illawarra Hawks to come out with breathing fire against Tasmania Jack Jumpers tonight. Can't see them drop in this game. They know they took their eyes momentarily off the prize, and what got them to where they are. It's been addressed. Things should be fine.
Well, let's see what Justin Tatum had to say in the post-game presser about that loss to Cairns.
You know, you got to question your guys if this, are we going to waste our season? You know, not wanting to be able to finish it like how we've been starting it. So you got to question your guys, what's their motives? Are they still in it, you know, to finish out strong, or are we just, you know, going through the motions?
If the Illawarra Hawks drop off this season and manage to fall late, I completely give up on trying to predict anything because they have looked fantastic all year, and I think just a bit of a flash in the pan, Pete, but their losses, they have there's something that goes with every one, and it looks like it's 100 points.
Yeah, when teams really run up the score against them, and I said it just before when we were talking about the Hawks, this is coming at a really good time for them because now Justin Tatum, and listening to that, he has 2 examples that he can go back and show. If he sees any of those cracks, he can address it in a game. Where if he sees those cracks coming in 2 weeks' time, he can say, do you remember when we were there and we lost those 2 games when we shouldn't have, when we lost to Cairns? We're not doing that again. Let's lock back in. I think it's come at a very good time, and I think they're going to get back to what they do best, and it will start tonight.
Damon, the Jack Jumpers, I've been critical during this win streak. Really? Yeah, I keep it subtle sometimes. I've been critical that the strength of schedule for the Jack Jumpers was very weak during this streak. Now, they did have some good wins across that. They beat Melbourne, which was a good win, and they had another one in throughout that was solid. If they lose tonight, 0-2 off the back of that streak to Southeast Melbourne and Illawarra, who in my opinion are 2 contenders, where do we put Tassie then? Are we sort of saying, hey, maybe it was a strength of schedule thing, or do you think, again, maybe just a flash in the pan?
I don't get caught up in the strength of schedule thing because they don't make the schedule. You can only play who's in front of you, and they won 8 games in a row. That's hard to do. Nobody else has done it. So, no, I'll give them full credit for that. But without Will Magnay, they cannot be taken too seriously. They'll still get some wins, but not without the championship. They need Will.
Well, that's for me, right? All they got to do is just finish in the top 6, which I think they will. They certainly will, and Will Magnay will be back by then, which means that anyone you put in front of him, they'll back themselves.
No Will Magnay tonight. Sam Froling comes into the game. He was almost nowhere against Cairns, which was unusual, but surely this is one where he circled on the schedule and said, hey, I'm going to bounce back to a bit of form.
And I think Justin Tatum's going to be feeding him the rock early and often. So with no Will Magnay, I'm expecting Froling to have a huge night.
If not Sam, Lockley Albrick. One of them, one of the 2-headed monsters is going to get you.
It's the first time I've ever heard him referred to as Lockley.
Lockley Albrick.
You made it the whole show without a single error. And then as the men's club logo comes up, you fall. Illawarra Tassie coming up. Damon, Pete, thank you very much. Enjoy all the NBL action. Fish.